Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, former President Donald Trump visits the Ohio community impacted by a fiery train derailment. We'll have the latest on the cleanup and the steps being taken to prevent this from happening again.
And President Joe Biden is meeting with countries on NATO's eastern flank today. A look at what the president hopes the trip will accomplish.
Plus, watching showers head our way tonight ahead of more record warm temperatures tomorrow. The breakdown ahead as Mountain News at 5:30 starts now.
Dedicated to Southern and Eastern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News at 5:30.
Good evening, I'm Steve Hensley.
And I'm Olivia Calfee. Federal regulators are taking charge of long-term recovery efforts in East Palestine, Ohio, where Norfolk Southern freight train derailment has disrupted life and spread concerns over toxins released in the wake of the accident.
Former President Donald Trump, who is of course running for president again, visited the community today. CBS's Nicole D'Antonio reports from Washington.
Former President Donald Trump visited East Palestine, Ohio, where residents are still struggling from that freight train derailment that spewed toxic chemicals in their community.
We're here today in East Palestine to show our love and support for our fellow Americans and this hour of need, and that's what it is. It was an hour of need, but they've done some incredible work in a very short period of time.
The former president, who has announced he's running for the White House again in 2024, has been critical of the Biden administration's response to the disaster. Ahead of Mr. Trump's visit, President Biden tweeted, quote, "For years, elected officials, including the last admin, have limited our ability to implement and strengthen rail safety measures.
We know that this community will bounce back."
On Tuesday, the Environmental Protection Agency ordered Norfolk Southern to pay for the cleanup of the train wreck and chemical release. If it fails to comply, the EPA warned it will do the cleanup itself and seek triple damages from the company.
What's going to happen in the water? Everyone's concerned about the environment. This is a man-made type of disaster.
Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg travels to East Palestine tomorrow to meet with community members. Meanwhile, he's urging lawmakers here on Capitol Hill to take bipartisan action.
One of the reasons that I'm asking Congress for help is that right now there is a cap on the toughest fines that we can impose, about a $250,000 per violation.
The Transportation Secretary's visit will come as the National Transportation Safety Board plans to release preliminary findings from its ongoing investigation. Nicole D'Antonio, CBS News, Washington.
A DOT spokesperson says Buttigieg is visiting the community, quote, now that the EPA has said it's moving out of the emergency response phase and transitioning to the long-term remediation phase.
Prosecutors in Atlanta will issue indictments regarding the efforts to overturn the 2020 presidential election. A special grand jury spent months investigating former President Donald Trump and his allies. Ultimately, it's up to District Attorney Fani Willis to decide which indictments to pursue. Sources say her team is evaluating evidence to decide whether to bring a narrow case or a sprawling one. Donald Trump's leadership PAC is spending millions on lawyers for the former president and his interests. Trump's Save America PAC spent more than $16 million on legal services in 2022. According to CNN's review of its filings, nearly 30 law firms received at least $100,000 from the PAC. The disbursements show more than $12.5 million went to 16 law firms that represented Trump himself, his business and family interest in criminal matters and other legal disputes.
It has been warm and windy region-wide today. We continue to watch clouds stream in, though, as that cold front starts to move into the region as we head through later on tonight. Look at these temperatures, though. 73 right now with that filtered sunshine here in Hazard. Here's the view from Buffalo Mountain in southern Perry County, where those clouds continue to stream on in. It has been breezy today. Biggest gusts out west. We've topped out at 41 a gust in London, 46 in Lexington, into the mid-30s for gusts out there in the Cumberland Valley. A little bit less in the way of the windy conditions out east. Gusts right now still over the bluegrass, but that's all ahead of that boundary that's heading our way. Right now gusting to 29 in London, 14 in Irvine, still 25 the gust in Hazard. That has brought the warmth How about this? 73 Hazard, 75 Jackson, 76 Manchester, Prestonsburg, and into Pikeville, back out toward Monticello and Irvin as well. So we remain very, very warm out there. We're a clean sweep here in the mountains, but here's the issue. Out to the west, tornado watch in Illinois, and here comes some storms across West Kentucky. Those will continue to lose their punch as they head to the east tonight, but I think we still have some shower chances on the way. Details of when they move in and when we could see some more record-breaking temperatures in just a few minutes. Guys?
All right, Evan, thank you. The U.S. Supreme Court has sided with an Arizona death row inmate who challenged his sentence in federal court. In a 5-4 decision today, Supreme Court justices ruled that John Montenegro Cruz should be resentenced because his due process rights were violated during the initial case. Cruz was convicted of the murder of a Tucson police officer in 2003 and was sentenced to death. The ruling in the case could impact as many as 30 people on Arizona's death row.
The U.S. military is telling active duty soldiers to stop eating poppy seed bagels, pastries, and other foods with poppy seeds. The top Pentagon official for personnel sent a memo warning service members that eating poppy seeds could cause them to fail drug tests. The memo said poppy seed crops are cultivated by pharmaceutical and food industries, and during harvest, the seeds could be contaminated with morphine and codeine. It was not mentioned how many troops may have had positive drug tests as a result of poppy seeds. President Biden is meeting with the countries on NATO's eastern flank today before wrapping up his trip to Ukraine and Poland.
The visit comes as Russia's invasion of Ukraine is about to enter its second year. CBS's Skylar Henry reports from the White House.
Heading into a meeting at the presidential palace in Warsaw, Poland Wednesday, President Biden made his first comments on Russian President Vladimir Putin's decision to suspend participation in the New START nuclear arms control treaty.
Mr. President, any reaction to Putin saying he's pulling out of New START?
I don't have time.
No time?
No. No time. Big mistake.
The president, who had a trace of ash on his forehead for Ash Wednesday, was there to meet with the leaders of the Eastern European NATO countries known as the Bucharest Nine. As the countries on NATO's eastern flank, they are most vulnerable to a potential attack by Russia.
You know better than anyone what's at stake in this conflict, not just for Ukraine, but for the freedom of democracies throughout Europe and around the world.
During the meeting, the president once again reaffirmed the United States' commitment to its allies, calling it a sacred oath and vowing to defend every inch of NATO. NATO's Secretary General warned that Russia is preparing for more war, not peace.
We cannot allow Russia to continue to chip away at European security.
Wednesday's meeting comes at the end of President Biden's trip that began with an unannounced visit to Kyiv Monday, meant to bolster support for Ukraine as the war with Russia enters its second year. Skylar Henry, CBS News, the White House.
The president is expected back in the United States tonight. The Kremlin declined to comment on CNN reporting about a Russian intercontinental ballistic missile that appears to have failed around the time U.S. President Joe Biden was in Ukraine. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said the matter was the prerogative of the Ministry of Defense. CNN has reached out to the Russian Defense Ministry for comment. The Russian deputy foreign minister dismissed reporting about the apparent test failure as harmful misinformation without presenting further evidence. Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, college acceptance season is near. And after that comes the plan to pay for higher ed, what you need to know about scammers targeting students searching for financial aid.
Plus more showers on the way tonight as some of us flirt with 80 degrees tomorrow. I'm breaking it all down next.